The radical arm of the LGBTQXYZ blah 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 movement, the Rainbow Mafia, as they call them, has convinced an entire segment of humans, mostly liberals, to bow down and kiss their rainbow, and it's downright pathetic. Allow me to give you just a few examples from this week alone. This one I'm about to play for you might be the most pathetic of all. Watch as Drew Barrymore literally gets on a knee to worship this fake woman, Dylan Mulvaney. Watch this.
There is so much hatred directed at the trans community right now. It's everywhere. And I think the greatest weapon that I can contribute is trans joy and comedy and talking about hard, subjects and really intricate moments of a transition and try to let everybody in to see that, I'm not a monster. I'm not somebody that, is trying to do anything but be myself. It's interesting because I look at someone like you and I can't imagine anybody disliking you.
Oh, please. Do you want to know, ironically, who dislikes me the most sometimes?
Who?
Myself.
Oh, me too. Oh.
So that jerk has made a career out of mocking actual women as if we're nothing more than high heel wearing bimbos, and Drew Barrymore is going to get on a knee for him? This is some twisted stuff, folks. Like, are we in the Twilight Zone here? Same thing with Lil Nas X, a gay rapper, by the way, who is now apologizing to the trans community for tweeting out this photo of social media influencer Glow Princess with the caption, "The surgery was a success." And then the Rainbow Mafia went nuts and accused him of mocking the transitioning process. At first, Lil Nas X defended himself, saying what we can all see. The chick looks like him. But then he reversed course and apologized for offending the mob. So let's get that straight. A gay man is now apologizing to the mob for not being woke enough. That mob, by the way, represents 0.1% of Americans, and yet they've convinced at least half of the country to bow down to their BS. You know what? Be trans. I don't give a damn. But what you will not do is make the rest of the people in this country cower, bow, and bend to whatever woke whim you're force-feeding us this week. And for the avoidance of doubt here, let me make something else very clear. I'm a female. I'm not a cis female, whatever the hell that is. Do not add your BS to my biology. Take your cis and shove it. And that also goes for our grifting president, who has been instructed by whatever green-haired Gen Zer in his office that's pulling his strings this week to normalize gender dysmorphia and the coax, mutilation, and medication of children.
It's not like, a kid wakes up one morning and says, I decided I want to become a man, or I want to become a woman, or I want to change.
Yes, the whole point, premise, and plan of this radical LGBTQ movement is for kids to wake up and not know what the hell they are, then be coaxed into taking drugs or cutting off body parts in the discovery process. We cannot allow this administration, the Democrat Party, or the Rainbow Mafia to normalize this crap. It's child abuse. We will be remembered in history by how we protect children, and this ain't it. Tomorrow is St. Paddy's Day, and while I assume most Irish people will not be offended by you appropriating their culture in your green, leprechaun, and shamrock-affiliated attire, my next three mentions will likely be pretty offended if you act like a loser today and appropriate their culture. First up is our least favorite president, but our favorite loser, Joe Biden. This week, he tweeted out a cute little letter from a little girl asking him to fix the non-existent gender wage gap. And the internet was quick to assert the letter, similar to said pay gap, is fake. The letter was allegedly written by a little girl named Charlotte. And by little girl named Charlotte, I mean Joe Biden. Now look, I can't prove Joe wrote this letter to himself, but all the signs are there. Everything from the handwriting to this freelance interpretation of the English language, all very Joe Brandon-esque. Now that alone would be enough to name Joe Biden a loser this week, but there's more to this than meets the eye. First of all, it's been reported that while in the Senate, Joe paid females less than their male counterparts, so there's that. But then there's also Joe's response to take into account, where he responded, "I'm committed to building an economy where my daughters have the same rights and opportunities as my sons." So let's unpack that. First of all, I thought Joe and the collective left didn't recognize gender, so to bring up women's rights at this juncture is a little rich. But furthermore, it would take a lot, and I mean a whole lot, for anyone to have the same opportunities as your son. Ain't that right, big guy? But on to loser 2 this week, the freak show who rushed the stage during Avril Lavigne's presentation at the Canadian Juno Awards this week. Now, the girl, I'm assuming her gender, sorry, was topless and had phrases like land back and stop logging growth now written on her flesh. She's a loser, but Avril Lavigne's response, it was a win.
Pop records fused with his Punjabi roots. Based in Victoria, BC, his music has gained a worldwide audience with sold-out shows in Canada, the U.S. Get the off.
You're gonna have to say that.
You know, I love how calm, cool, and collected Avril remained, especially as her eyeballs were likely singed at that sight. I'd like to see one of these freaks pull something like that at a country show, not like a Maren Morris show, but a real country music concert. But speaking of performances, on to my last loser of the week, faux Jussie Smollett. Now, if you recall, Jussie was caught for staging a fake hate crime against himself, and while his sentence was as light as his talent, he has likely been irreparably embarrassed by the whole thing, especially now that the brothers whom he paid to fake attack him have spoken out.
As we crossed the street, we said, hey, to get his attention. Hey, Nick. Hey. He turned around, looked at us, and that's when we started yelling the famous slurs he wanted us to yell. Hey. Aren't you that Empire? Hey, Empire fat Nick. It's MAGA country. Yeah. And then he said, what did you say to me? And then that's when I threw the first punch at him. He wanted it to look like he fought back. Then I threw him to the ground. After I threw him to the ground, I used my knuckle and gave him a noogie. So I went like this. Why did I do that? To give him a scar, to give him a mark, to make it look real, like he really did get his ass beat.
In a Fox Nation exclusive interview, they slammed Smollett as a crazy fraudster who paid them for the ambush so he could be seen as a poster boy for activism. Well, he's the poster boy for losers everywhere, and may I suggest he and Colin Kaepernick team up with the Ghostbusters to fight their imaginary oppression.